Hey and welcome, I'm Hammy and it's time for an Overwatch lore tour. In this video, I'm taking you on a journey through the lore, Easter eggs and a little speculation around Chateau Guillard. Overwatch's new free-for-all deathmatch map, the Chateau holds a significance in being the ancestral home of Widowmaker's family. I'm going to go through what we might learn from the map's bio, a bit of a tour around the map, showing off some Easter eggs and interesting points, and then finally some speculation based on what we may or may not have learnt. Time code's in the description below if you'd like to skip. Firstly, let's have a look at the description very quickly. Located near Annecy in southeastern France, Chateau Guillard for hundreds of years was the estate of the influential Guillard family until it gradually fell into disrepair after the family's power waned in the decades after the Revolution. Recently, apparently, the chateau has found a new owner, the Talon agent Widowmaker, who has returned to her family's ancestral home. So, firstly, what can we learn from that? Well, Amelie's maiden name, her family name, Guillard. The chateau's setting is in Annecy in southeastern France. Known as the Venice of the Alps to some, it's an idyllic and tourist region and is a mere 25 miles south of Geneva, perhaps ideally placed for visiting Overwatch's Swiss HQ for Amelie in a past, although if she was a member of the Parisian Ballet, as her skin bio in-game suggests for her Swan Lake-inspired skins, it'd be interesting to see how that may or may not fit in. There is very much a debate from this bio even as to whether Amelie ever lived here. For hundreds of years, it was the estate of the family until it gradually fell into disrepair after the family's power waned in the decades after the Revolution. Some people have asked which revolution. Well, the French Revolution, when you talk about revolutions in France, would probably be the obvious one. From around 1789 until 1799, the revolution overthrew the monarchy, established a republic. There were violent periods of political and social upheaval, and then finally at the very end of it there was a dictatorship under Napoleon. If Amelie and the Guillard family were in some way influential in the past, then this could very much fit. As for those wondering as to why the chateau is in a certain state of disrepair, we'll touch on this in a bit. It's quite likely maybe that it was left for quite some time, kept as a family possession, and recently someone's decided to restore it, whether that's Widowmaker or not. Okay, let's have a tour around the map and give you some interesting points and little Easter eggs from it. Now, in real life, on the Lake of Annecy, there is one very notable chateau. This is the Chateau de Douin. If you have a look at some of these photos and compare them to the chateau that we're about to see, I think you can see that this was definitely the inspiration. And a shout out to Arno, who made the comparison between his screenshots and these over on Reddit. Links in the description below if you're interested. As we explore the chateau on the lake, we get a little bit more of an idea as to what Widowmaker might have been up to recently, as well as her family's past. One of the courtyard with the jump pads, of which there are a couple on this deathmatch map, has a statue in the middle of it. Looking slightly Grecian, as well as holding this apple, there are potentially a number of people this could be, but it looks as though it could well be Eris, the goddess of discord. Now, in one of the Greek myths and legends, there was a story that Eris, at a banquet of the gods, presented a golden apple, and it was decreed that whichever goddess out of Hera, Zeus's wife, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, or Athena, was the fairest should have it. Now, asking three goddesses who is the fairest was probably a bit of a tough order, so a human judge, Paris, Prince of Troy, was nominated to judge. Hera offered him power, Athena promised him wisdom, and Aphrodite offered him the most beautiful women in all the world. Paris chose Aphrodite as the fairest goddess, and she offered him the lovely Helen of Sparta, who was already the wife of King Menelaus. Hera was none too happy with the slight, so she decided that to pay Paris back she would do everything in her power to see Troy destroyed, and the story of the Trojan War comes from this. If this statue is an Eris, it could be vaguely Venus de Milo-esque, therefore maybe it could be Aphrodite as well. It may have no reflection on Widow's story whatsoever, but it's a nice classical touch. As we go into the chateau's study or library, we see evidence that Amelie or Widowmaker has set herself up here as a base of operations. Her Widow's Kiss rifle lies ready to be used right next to her desk, and on the laptop we can see an email confirming that a limousine will be waiting at Nice Côte d'Azur Airport at 9:30 p.m. The journey between Nice and Monaco should last about half an hour, and this can of course be changed as a reservation at her convenience. The service offerer remains at her complete disposal for any other requests. When put together with the plane ticket under the name of Danielle Guillard, we can ascertain that the journey was from Charles de Gaulle Airport to Nice, and then Widowmaker is presumably going to be picked up from Nice and taken to Monaco. Now, of course, we've seen Monaco recently in the events of the most recent comic, Masquerade, where Doomfist breaks out of prison and we see the tale of him, Reaper, Sombra and Widowmaker coming together and working in Venice to get Doomfist back into the Talon Inner Council. We can therefore maybe ascertain that this map and the events of it are set just before or around the events of Masquerade. It's interesting the name on the plane reservation, Danielle Guillard. Is this an alias that she's going by? Is it actually the name of a relative of hers? Would be interesting to find out, as well as if any of her family are actually still alive. As for the folders on her desk, there's a ton of files. If you look closely, you'll notice there the Shrike folder, the Arna one that was in the Temple of Anubis attacking Spawn before her release and announce, and underneath that Sombra's folder as well. So it looks like Widow's paying more attention than people think if she's keeping an eye on Sombra and Arna. Finally, on the bookshelves at the back is a photo of Amélie and Gerard on their wedding day. This is the spray that we saw for Widowmaker from Uprising, showing us what Gerard finally looked like. Some people have been speculating as to what this means for Widowmaker's conditioning from Talon. I'll talk about that at the end of this video. As we go through the chateau, we can see that although it's been in a state of disrepair, there have been renovations going on recently, both with painting rollers, dust sheets and work being done. I don't exactly see Widowmaker as the painting and decorating type, but whether some work had started in other ways or she's paying people since she moved back in, who knows. Underneath the chateau we can see evidence of a wine cellar and trellis type structures on the outside. Now the area around Annecy does have alpine vineyards, so perhaps at one time in the past there were vineyards attached to this chateau, and the production and storing of wine was something to do with it. We can't actually access any of the upstairs rooms in the little chateau building. There are two doors that have sparked people's imagination up here that are accessible either if you can fly or with a grappling hook going each way. I do wonder what's up there. Finally, as we come into the dining room, there are a couple of things of interest. The first is the crest above the fireplace. Now, this is probably a fictional crest, so I don't know how much detail's been gone into it, but there are a couple of things that were interesting. Firstly, the symbol above the crest is the coronet of a count, representing a count in the old French Ancien Régime or Old Regime structure. Up until the French Revolution, the French nobility and monarchy and old system kind of got replaced at that point. A count was a title, someone in charge of a county area, kind of like a province. Not necessarily royalty, as some have actually said, you can be a count without being directly in line for the throne. This could make Widowmaker's family in the past landed gentry of a sort, and would also explain why, following the Revolution, if the Revolution in the map description refers to the French Revolution, the property fell into disrepair or was left for a while. Widowmaker does of course have the Comtesse skin as well, the Countess skin, so maybe that was a little foreshadowing of some of her origins or her history of her family. Now the second thing of interest, if I've read it correctly, are the sort of flower type shapes on this crest. This is known as the cinquefoil, a 5-petaled flower. It signified purity, hope and joy. Now I'm no heraldic expert, but in the art of heraldry or the construction of crests or symbols, everything tends to have a significance or a meaning. In French civic heraldry, the cinquefoil is also sometimes used to represent the plant Narcissus, commonly called the cinquefoil as well. Now, Narcissus was a hunter in Greek myth and legend, known for his beauty. He was the son of a river god and nymph, proud, and he disdained those who loved him. Now, because of his hubris, Nemesis paid him a visit. Nemesis in ancient Greek myth and legend was the goddess who enacted retribution against those who succumbed to sort of arrogance before the gods. Nemesis attracted Narcissus to a pool. Narcissus saw his own reflection in the water and fell in love with it, not realising it was merely an image. Unable to leave the beauty, the glory of his own reflection, Narcissus lost his will to live and stared at his reflection till he died. So obviously this is the origin of the term narcissism, a fixation with oneself and one's physical appearance or public perception. So to have the Narcissus flower, if that's what these cinquefoils are in the shield, is kind of an interesting reflection. On one side of things you've got a symbol of purity, hope and joy. On the other side of things you've kind of got perhaps the symbol of a flower that represents maybe a more negative side of personality. And who knows if something comes out in Widowmaker's personality or backstory, how she was when she was a ballet dancer and similar, how she treated people, then maybe this will have some relevance. If not, maybe I'm digging too deeply, but it's always fun to try and uncode these kind of things. Last but not least in this room, if you turn around and look out of the window, then you can see a spider in a web, a nice little nod to Widow's current nickname and current condition. Maybe she was afraid of spiders, as she mentioned in the intro to Alive, from visiting the chateau at some point in the past. Okay, finally covering a little bit of speculation both from the map and also what certain things in it may raise. Really what we've learnt from this is that Widowmaker has a hideout, and maybe that reflects a little bit on how Talon in general works. I'm guessing there's no big super evil Talon base in the vein of a James Bond film, for example, so it makes sense that various members, various agents of the organisation would live in different places. This doesn't quite explain Talon tactics and the Talon sort of mercenary force that we saw in a similar uniform that invaded the train in McCree's comic Trainhopper, but for people like Widowmaker, Doomfist, Reaper, it makes sense that I guess they have their own hideout, so to speak. This further confirms the picture that we saw of Talon in Masquerade as being a decentralised organisation who meet up every so often, who have a leadership, and who somehow put their plans into action in other ways, rather than all being in one place. Again, which makes sense for a terrorist organisation, I guess. Now, one thing that people have definitely started talking about is Widowmaker's conditioning wearing off? And they cite this because of the photo on the wall in the study of this chateau. Now, remember that we've seen two examples before that might hint that this is the case. Widow size Gerard, sometimes when a map starts as an interaction, and in the Reflections comic from last Christmas, we also saw Widow visiting Gerard's grave in the snow. However, I just sort of emphasise, what do we actually know for sure? Well, from her bio, we know that her emotion is not completely gone, but we also don't know how the conditioning worked and to what extent it's taken over her personality. Quickly recapping her bio on the website, Talon subjected Widowmaker, or Amelie at the time, to an intense program of neural reconditioning. They broke her will, suppressed her personality, and reprogrammed her as a sleeper agent. She was then given extensive training, her physiology was altered, slowing her heart, which turned her skin cold and blue, and numbed her ability to experience emotion. Amelie was gone. Those were the specific words in Widow's bio on the website. So, some people are saying, oh, well, she's got a photo of her and her husband. Is Amelie, her old personality, coming back? Well, it's possible, but it's not proven by this photo, in my opinion, in any definite way. Talon have either created or acquired this very powerful technology or system of breaking a person. It always reminds me of the Jason Bourne series of films. Why would you leave her with emotions if you had access to this technology? Why would you leave her with memories of Gerard? So there's kind of two things I think here. Either she's controlled completely, and as a puppet, she might have these memories, but it doesn't really matter because she can't do anything about it, or that her memories have somehow been manipulated or suppressed somehow in line with the rest of her conditioning. If her personality has been suppressed and Amelie was gone, then why is she thinking about Gerard? Well, maybe this technology is not perfect. Or maybe they've changed her memory somehow. If Widowmaker knows that her husband was Gerard Lacroix, if she visited his grave in the comic, then that's enough for her to put together her backstory. So therefore, at the moment, we must presume that Talon either know that she knows and don't mind, or they control her and therefore don't care. If they control her and don't care, maybe she does remember that she killed Gerard. There's still this question that we haven't had answered. We don't know how much Widowmaker actually knows about the circumstances around her becoming Widowmaker and her husband's death. If Talon's technology is as powerful as it sounds, then maybe they could have just somehow affected her memory or implanted false memories. She remembers that she has a husband called Gerard. She can effectively go on the equivalent of Overwatch Google and know that she used to be a ballet dancer, but maybe the circumstances of his death and her involvement aren't in the public eye, and Talon can take advantage of that. It does also beg the question of what the people around her know and say to her as well. I could see Sombra, for example, finding out quite a lot about Widowmaker in the past and maybe telling her or not. Could that cause problems in future? So although we have in conclusion some hints that something is going on with Widowmaker, we're not exactly sure what it is because we don't know to what extent Talon actually control her and what they actually did to her in the first place. Ultimately, if Widowmaker is perhaps showing some more signs of emotion or some signs of her former self, if she found out, if she already knows, or if she was able to fully feel again the consequences of what she has done, if she's killed her husband, then how would she react as a person or as a character to that? This is the thing which makes me think it's very hard for there to be any kind of way back for Widowmaker to being redeemed or being entirely good, for example. There's a massive emotional, a massive psychological trauma that she's gone through and that she'd have to go through again, and how she'd react to that would be a story in itself. Ultimately, like the conversation between Anna and Widow, when Anna says this and Widow replies,
Gerard was a fool to love someone like you.
You don't know anything about him.
and very much like Gerard too, we still don't know a huge amount about Widowmaker, about Amélie Guillard's conditioning and past. She's a top candidate for a comic or something in future, I think. What do you think? Do let me know your theories and thoughts about the map, as well as about Widowmaker, in the comments below. I'd love to hear. If you enjoyed this, please do throw a like, subscribe, comment what you thought in the description below. If you like Overwatch lore and story like this, please do check out all of my lore explanations, analysis, speculation on heroes, maps, comics, animated shorts, and of course, interactions and voice lines in the playlists below. A big thanks to my patrons on Patreon, who help me keep making these longer lore videos for you. If you'd like to support from just $1 a month, less than a chocolate bar or a cup of coffee, please take a click through the link and have a look there, as well as some rewards that you can get to. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammy. Take it easy.